Hello dispatcher! Welcome to Module 4. You already studied the process of loading a truck and can call yourself a dispatcher. It's time to move on to more advanced information and figure out not just how to book loads, but what loads to book and what to base your choices on. In the next module, we'll dive into analyzing the freight market and you'll learn how to maximize your carrier's profits. But before that, we need to touch on another equally important factor in choosing freight: how to properly schedule drivers' working hours. Hours of Service, or HOS for short, is a series of laws and regulations that explain the maximum amount of time drivers are allowed to be on the job, including driving time, and indicates the number and length of rest periods to ensure the drivers are awake and alert. I want to emphasize that Hours of Service is not a list of tips or recommendations, but rather a set of rules. Carriers are required to comply with these rules. Every transportation company undergoes an inspection sooner or later, and if these rules have not been followed, the penalties can be severe, up to and including complete closure of the company and a hefty fine for the owner. Depending on what set of responsibilities the carrier has assigned you, your involvement in monitoring the driver's hours of service will vary. Working with owner-operators, the dispatcher rarely has access to ELD, where detailed truck movement statistics are kept. In this case, the dispatcher just needs to know and understand the basics of hours of service, consult with the driver about his remaining working hours, and book loads accordingly. On the other hand, working for a large company, your area of responsibility may be a little wider, and you will have to monitor the ELD and prevent violations. Either way, this module will give you enough knowledge for any situation. Before we get into the detailed analysis of the regulations, I've prepared a short set of rules. It's like a cheat sheet. You can write it out or print it out and put it somewhere visible when you work. These are the golden rules of Hours of Service. Let's go. A driver is allowed to work 14 consecutive hours per day, of which only 11 hours he or she may spend driving. Speed limits on the US highways are 65 to 75 miles per hour. Given an 11-hour driving window, a truck can drive 600 to 700 miles on average in a single working period. After the 14-hour work period ends, the driver must rest for 10 consecutive hours in order to start a new work period. This means he may not use the truck for work for 10 hours straight. Once the driver has started his truck and turned on ELD work mode, he cannot pause it. His 14 hours start now and cannot be prolonged. Your job as a dispatcher is to make sure he spends most of the time driving and generating revenue. On top of the daily 14-hour limit, there's a weekly limit as well. Drivers cannot work more than 70 hours within a period of 8 consecutive days. In order to fully reset the weekly schedule, the driver may choose to do a 34-hour reset. This means he can't drive the truck or for work or do any other work related to transportation for 34 consecutive hours. The driver may use the truck for personal needs at any time, regardless of the working hours. For example, to find a place to sleep or to go to a restaurant. However, he cannot do any work or approach the next pickup or delivery if he doesn't have any working hours left. In fact, just with these golden rules in your arsenal, you can already safely book loads and work with carriers. The main thing to understand is that once the driver has started work, he has 14 hours in total and 11 hours of driving. There's no way he can pause those hours. Also, he can drive a maximum of 700 miles in a day before he has to take a 10-hour break. That's the maximum, based on the speed limits and physical driver abilities. And if you factor in traffic, delays, stop for gas, and so on, it's even better to aim for around 600 miles per day. Or even better, consult with the driver regarding his ability to deliver a load on time. This should give you the basic understanding on how to plan load deliveries. If your driver is picking up a 1,000-mile load on a Monday morning, you know that it will take him 2 days and you can expect him to be ready to deliver it on Wednesday morning or earliest Tuesday evening. He can drive 500 miles on Monday during the day, then sleep and rest for 10 hours, and then wake up in the morning on Tuesday and drive another 500 miles until Tuesday evening. Let's take another example. Say you're trying to book a load of 800 miles on Monday morning. You shouldn't expect it to be delivered on Tuesday morning, he won't make it in time. And even if the delivery is on Tuesday afternoon, let's say, and the driver can make it on time, you have to consider that to get to that delivery he will wake up on Tuesday and will probably have another 100 or 200 miles left of driving. He will turn on his working clock on Tuesday morning and start using up his Tuesday work time. This means that he will get to the delivery, which, like we said, will only be around 100 or 200 miles away. He will get unloaded, then he needs to go pick up his next load, and his work clock is ticking this whole time. By the time he's loaded with his next load, he will have very limited working time left to actually drive. So most of his working time will be used up loading and unloading, and he will drive a small number of hours on Tuesday, and part of that day will be lost. This is usually something a dispatcher tries to avoid. If this all seems clear and understandable to you, congratulations, you can move on to the next lesson. If you're still confused, move on to the next lesson anyway. We will talk about the same thing, but in more detail. Once you're through the second lesson, go back to this one and go through it again. You'll get a better picture of how it works. Hours of service and driver scheduling is not a difficult part of the job, but it takes a bit of time to get the gist of it in the beginning.